So we had a conversation, I've had a number of conversations about the world of travel retail, the world of food brands, food and drink brands in travel retail. And so a quick intro from either one of you gents, please, just about who you are, your business, and where you're from in that travel retail sector.
Okay, I'll go first.
Age before beauty. Good, well done.
There we go, thank you for that. So I'll buy you a beer later. So I represent Jamie Oliver, over from the UK. Obviously, we've got a number of brands, primarily Jamie's Italian, which is a high street brand, but we also have Barbacoa, Jamie's Pizzeria, and Jamie's Deli. We have about 35 operations internationally, and some which we have with Market SSP, and some that we've developed together, which is Jamie's Deli, which is our first step internationally into the travel space. We operate at Gatwick, a unit of Jamie's Italian ourselves, plus a couple of other small concessions, but chose to partner with SSP internationally versus going to airports with our high street partners in international markets.
There was me trying to get these guys to disagree at some point. They've already loved each other before we got there. Have you noticed the clock goes quicker when you speak?
Yeah.
Mark.
So SSP, don't ask me to tell you what it stands for because you won't remember it, but it stands for Select Service Partners, but we'll call it SSP. We've been around for quite a number of years. We're currently a public company. I think the interesting statistics for you is we're in 125 airports around the world, 270 railway stations. Across all of those operations, we have 2,000 units, 30,000 people. So we're the sort of company you've never heard of, but a lot of the operations or the restaurants, cafes, bars that you might visit in an airport will be run by ourselves. And we have a number of our own brands and obviously a wide range of franchise brands of which, and I'm not just saying it because Nick's here, but Jamie's is one of the flagship brands in the portfolio. And we've been working together for probably about the last 3 years to develop the brand and roll out a number of Jamie's formats in a number of different airports in different geographies.
So how did the love affair, it's not really a relationship, it seems to be going on far too well. How did the relationship come together with you two guys? Who all of a sudden said, hang on, Jamie's has got to go into the travel sector? Is it you guys in SSP going, hang on, there's a good brand there, or is it you guys saying, hang on, there's an opportunity or a window? What's the...
Bit of both, really.
Yeah, it's kind of circumstance, right timing, right place in a way. We were just introduced through one of our international partners who happened to sit on the SSP board as well, but also sat on, it was our partners in Stockholm, so he sat on their board. So he kind of said, why don't you just have a chat with the guys at SSP? So I really wasn't keen for us to go into airports. We'd had a really tough time opening Gatwick. It was hugely challenging for the business moving. We had 32 restaurants within the UK at the time, and then we moved into Gatwick, and it was, we had to pull all head office resource to try and make that unit work. Incredibly complex, so we didn't want to put that burden onto our partners. So really, we sort of felt, let's leave the travel space, not really look into it. Let's just focus out on the high street, and it didn't really feature in our thinking at all. Chatted with SSP, and suddenly we kind of felt, here's a business that puts brand first, not operator, and not themselves first, which I think we felt with a couple of other operators. So it was more circumstance and timing, really.
And so what was so difficult ultimately about the Jamie's Italian brand sitting in travel that you did in Gatwick? Because every time I've been through, it's been fine. It's been a good all-round experience. That's nice and simple to go and do. But what was the difficulty thing?
I think obviously it's about understanding the timings of the customers, the peaks and the travel. One, simple timing, the fact that you've got to be open and operating from 5 a.m. till 10 p.m., 11 p.m. sometimes. We were an Italian brand, so we had to suddenly do breakfast for the first time. Jamie has that within his books. We'd never done it on the high street and at a volume where it's peak. Everything, the security clearance, to get in and operate, it can't just be, right, I'm going to pop through. You have to go through 6 months of security checks. Everything has to be vetted, all the materials that you're using. It's highly complex, and then if there is somebody ill, your manager, waiter, head chef, KP, etc., you can't just get someone from another location because, again, the security stops you. Rent is another thing that's absolutely crazy. So it's... I think all of these factors kind of coming together and dealing with the volumes meant that we weren't experienced in it, and it took a good year to 18 months really to get a hold of it, and before you even started thinking about making money.
I paid Nick to write all of that to make it sound so difficult for any brand to go into an airport that why would you think about it? But I think at the same time we were talking, what was also clear from a lot of airports is they were starting to look for international brands. And also from an SSP point of view, we'd always done our own thing in our own country. Each country had done their own thing. And so we were beginning to see an opportunity for high-profile brands to go beyond their core market into other international markets. And there was also a need coming from airports for that as well. So the timing worked quite well. And also, as you said, having done Jamie's Gatwick, I think you then realise just what a monumental exercise that is. And also for brands, is that me?
A little
me. For brands who are growing and are creating a significant profile, travel is a very good way of doing that, but it comes at a cost if you want to do it yourself, as you guys were talking about. So it depends on the life cycle of the brand. It's a great visibility platform, travel. It's hugely complex and complicated to get into it. But when I joined the SSP business, the thing that I could not get my head around was the numbers of people that you have coming through a unit day in, day out. I mean, I used to run a casual dining brand in the UK called Pizza Express, and Monday to Wednesday was tumbleweed down the high street, just no one. You couldn't get people through the door. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, you made your money. You have an airport Monday to Sunday, 6 till 2 o'clock in the morning sometimes, and knowing how to operate that and also developing a menu that can meet that kind of day part all the way through and staffing it is a real challenge for any brand. And I suppose that's where the meeting of minds came in. These guys were looking to go international, get the visibility through travel hubs, and we were gearing ourselves up to do that. But at the same time, airports were starting to ask for that kind of brand, that kind of offer.
That's the complexity. I think. When Mark sort of did talk about the numbers, and it's absolutely incredible. And obviously, we'd experienced that with Gatwick, and you kind of hear stories of a 2 square meter unit that just sells sandwiches in Dusseldorf, not a very large airport that can turn over €1 million a year, literally out of 2 square meters. It's fantastic. So that it kind of became a no-brainer. But then it's about what you're going to do together, because it is. I mean, we've now opened a few units. We've got 3 operating, and it's been hard. I mean, it's really been challenging.
Why?
I mean, probably we did the most challenging thing, which is start a new partnership, and then start it in a territory where you're both not from we're both head officed in London, where you're then having to deal with another operator, SSP's sort of local representatives, and then you go and put in an airport client, and the airports are getting more and more discerning. They're getting more and more demanding about what they want, and to real specifics about how they want food displayed, not just the concept. So you add that in, and then we thought, let's create a new brand together. Instead of just taking Jamie's Italian, we said, no, let's go try and Jamie's Delis, a bit more scale, a bit more of an opportunity. So with all of those things kind of coming together, it was hugely challenging, and we've had a really tough time over the past, since we opened in Oslo, in Delhi. Oslo Airport on the domestic side, we're doing about, fantastic numbers. But operationally, there's some probably words used about it, which I shouldn't repeat on stage, but we've all kind of been like, Christ, what the hell are we doing here? We got to seriously refine this and quickly, but it's really tough to do because you've got, 6,000, 7,000, 8,000 people coming through it a week. It's a small unit, so the opportunity's there, but it's again even really complex. So it's been.
I think the thing they're learning was within Italian. Well, I think we quickly worked out with the Jamie's Italian, it's a big footprint, great offer, big footprint, but it doesn't have a breakfast day part. So if we were going to have a global partnership, it was going to limit the number of potential opportunities with Jamie's Italian. So then you look at Oslo, which is effectively, to the Norwegians, it's a bus station. So you have 20 million people going through Oslo, most of them several times a week. They treat it like a commuter station. So you need a fast-flowing, grab-and-go deli offer. Then we also have the local team. So you have client, us two as brand partners, but then you have the local team who believe that they can do this sort of stuff in their sleep. And I think what they realized was that actually with Jamie's, this was a step up in culinary skills. So, if I think where we probably learned to what we would do next time is we had to make sure we had the right quality of manager in charge. Plus the other thing is that because of the type of offer, training timelines and training lead times much longer because you need to gear the people up for the training. The good news is now we've done Oslo and gone through the pain of it, the next sites will be easier because we can pick up the learning from one market to another. But every market is different because you've also then got the client. And the client will have a very clear idea of what they want and what they don't want. And quite often you have to compromise to start with and then gradually bring in the menu items that you know you should have had in the first place.
When you're saying client, is that the airport?
That's the airport. Yeah, that's the airport, yeah. And all clients are different. All clients have a very clear idea of what they want and why they want it. And you generally have to start convincing them once you've got the unit open. But there are other challenges.
So you've got three ultimate players in that market anyway. You've got the brand and what you want to represent in the brand. You've got the operator and your nominated person and head and whatever there. And then you've got the airport of what they want.
You've got the client, yeah.
And that is that triangle. Because the airport's charging you a lot of money for your rent, huh?
They are charging you a lot of money, yeah. So rents, I mean, that's the other, I think, real challenge at the moment. And rents in airports are just going one way, and that is up. And to the point it will start to get, I think, unsustainable. Because what will happen is the knock-on is consumer prices, because that's the only way you can claw back that kind of level of rent. But I think Oslo in particular is quite a high rent environment, but also quite a high price environment.
What sort of percentage are we talking for? You're talking to F&B people. What sort of percentage do you approximately?
Well, so if I take average market, so if you take the Nordics, you're talking high 20s to middle 30s. If you take this market, you're talking more about middle 30s percentage turnover on rent. But the other thing to bear in mind is, and I'm sure some of you are familiar with this model, that you have to guarantee, so you project your sales, you then have to guarantee a percentage of those sales based on the rent. So we call it, generally it's about 80% rent level against the sales number that you project. So you are on the hook, come what may, for a big number. If you don't open on time, if you don't hit the numbers. So the other thing I think is also, we haven't talked about it, but understanding passenger profile, passenger flows, because quite often you're going into an airport which is being completely redeveloped. So the passenger flows are going to completely change. So you may be bidding on a unit that is going to be completely bypassed, or you may have the wrong airlines because you don't have the right level of spend. So all of that work, we have to sit down and go through and say, look, are we absolutely sure this is the right space because these are the sort of passengers we're going to have, therefore it needs to be this offer. So it's actually a fascinating business to be in, but it's very complex and quite a lot of challenges to overcome. But when you do the kind of numbers we're doing in Oslo and the other sites that are coming on stream, it does pay back.
So for you, is the Jamie Oliver brand going in, and actually probably both have got an opinion on it, but what is it for you? Is it the Jamie Oliver brand now getting out and being more visual to a larger footprint of people? Or is it the commercials? And has that changed from when you first opened in Gatwick to now when you're working with SSP? Has there been a bit of a shift saying, hang on, do you know what, that was really painful, we'll not do it again. Oh, hang on, we can do it again. Before it was about a footprint and some commercials, and actually now it's a good window into the world of travel or food and drink, or... Well, how do you think that's changed?
I think it's both aspects, really, to be honest. I think the commercials are there. I mean, we don't have to worry about the rent. That's their problem. We're quite happy with the top line, which is fantastic. Of course, we need to make sure our partners make their money because otherwise they're not going to open more units. But it's a great brand exposure. We've had some battles with some partners. So now a mistake we'd made was in early development agreements we'd made with the partners on the high streets, we hadn't excluded airports and travel spaces. We've sort of changed that, and in some instances are going back retrospectively to kind of take back those terms on an amicable basis, because again we kind of just highlight how tough it is to actually operate within the space, and because of these huge rents, SSP have an advantage, or not just SSP, other operators, in that it's not about the one brand going in. They've generally got 5 or 6 or 7 units, so it's about the whole business together. But for us, and with our partners, we'll open on Oslo High Streets, but we'll have 2 units in the airport as well. It's a great touch point. Everyone coming in, they think, oh, well, there's Jamie's there, or I can experience on the high street. And it feels like getting great brand exposure. It is a great marketing tool for us. The brand, we've tried to use Jamie Oliver as a name a bit more. Jamie's Italian. Everyone ends up saying they've gone to a Jamie's, and how much have you gone to Jamie Oliver's restaurant? So you need that name recognition, especially in an environment where, to be honest, you've got a tension for 2 seconds as they're walking towards the gate, looking at their passport, worrying about their luggage. Oh, Jamie Oliver, great. I could trust that. They're having to make an instant decision. So again, we are trying to leverage the brand equity that Jamie Oliver has and awareness that he has globally. But listen, we wouldn't be doing it without the commercial benefit, because it's really tough. It's tough to kind of get it going, and each time, as Mark said, it's every territory, and we're in Oslo, Dusseldorf Airport, Vienna, we'll be in Schiphol, we're moving into Nice. But for us, every single time, it's a new process with a new team. That takes a lot of work, a lot of effort to get right. And whether it's, if you're opening with a partner in one territory, you've kind of done the work once with them, and then they're just improving on that process the second, third, fourth time. So it's not, you've got to really be committed to it to go into it.
I mean, I always say to brands when I first meet them, if you're going into travel to make lots and lots of money out of franchising the brand, that's not the right objective. It depends on the development pipeline. Once we get to a reasonable pipeline, so as we are with Jamie's, it becomes a credible income stream. But to start with, it's more about the brand visibility, I think. But I mean, I've had operators say to me, I can make more out of one restaurant in a small seaside town on the south coast of England than I can franchising with you in an airport. My view is, well, that's then fine. You should go and do that. But there's a strategic reason for going into travel. And we've talked about all the challenges. We don't need to go through those again. And once you get it right, as Nick said, doesn't mean you can apply that template to every market, because if I look at every location that we've gone into, everyone is different, and it's often driven. It is always driven actually by the client and the airport layout, and there are certain fixed things that you can't resolve. And there are also challenges around airport timing as well, where the other thing to bear in mind is in airport timings. The strange thing is we might have had conversations for 3 years about Nice. The fact is then when we get the timeline for the construction of Nice is probably half the time that you would get to build a high street site. So we have to suddenly condense the construction timeline and the training timeline. But once you get it up and running, you get the numbers. But I think, going back to what I was saying earlier, I think initially people need to think very carefully about why they want to go into travel. The other point that you made, Nick, about franchise partners, quite a lot of franchise partners believe that if you're already with a franchise partner, they believe they can go into travel. And what people don't realise is that railway stations, airports, often the tenders are packaged up in lots. And those lots will range from casual dining all the way down to coffee shops, but they come in packages. And you can, in most cases, not pre-qualify for those packages. You might be invited to the tender presentation. What you'll often find is it's a very small number of players who are then invited to tender. So quite often your franchise partner in market will be excluded by definition from going into travel.
And so do you think so if I ask a very similar question of yourself as well, do you think therefore the Jamie Oliver brand has helped those tender processes, has been both a commercial value and a marketing value, if you'd like, for SSP?
Oh, no, definitely. I mean, definitely. I mean, there is a desire for airports worldwide now to look at more global brand portfolios, to have headline brands. There is also the flip side that every airport wants something slightly different, and that is often leading to why Jamie's Deli sometimes will appear in slightly different ways in one market to another. But there's no doubt about it. But to be very clear, when it comes to the financials, as Nick said, I could put one of my own brands, an upper crust, in, which is a baguette operation. We have a couple in London railway stations, probably 30 square metres, that will do £50,000 a week. So that's where I will probably make my money. I will make less money by far out of a Jamie's, but if I'm packaging my baguette shop with a Jamie's, I have a much stronger chance of winning a tender than if I just produce a whole line of coffee shops. And it's a question of making sure you've got the right mix in the brand portfolio. It depends on the way the tender is packaged up, but often you will find that the airports are looking for that ladder of premium branded high street casual dining with a well-known name, down to own brand, does the numbers, does the volume, cases for that segment of the market. And if you look at all the consumer insight into travel, so eating is also almost becoming in airports the new sort of retail experience. There are more and more people going to an airport and having the F&B experience before they get on the plane. That's largely because in a lot of planes these days you can't get anything to eat. That's another story. But there's a lot more interest in food in airports, as I'm sure all of you are aware. So I think it plays very much to brands like Jamie's being in that mix when it comes to tenders.
For us, that was actually part of the, especially for Jamie, part of the attraction of doing it. It's almost that challenge, you know, with such high rental things that can invariably lead to perhaps a lower quality offer. I mean, you know, everybody here, we've all travelled here, all based here, but travel a lot around the Middle East, travel to airports around the world. Sometimes to actually eat well, have quality offers is challenging to find. So for us, in particular, you know, Jamie wants to kind of change the way we eat for good around the world, and that covers various different sectors. Our bit is to try and deliver fresh, quality, high quality, nutritious food into a travel environment with all of the factors of high rent, expensive labor, poor customer time, time-poor people, but give them a quality option that you can kind of have so you can be traveling, as it is for a number of people, sort of eating in airport to airports around the world, but still maintain a balanced, healthy diet. That's an important challenge for us, and you know, SSP have kind of bought into that. You know, sometimes extremely in a painful way for them, but it's really important to us to be able to deliver on that brand mission, and those are our values. So.
Good stuff, good stuff. Any specific things you wouldn't do, or the things you've had to compromise on, or the things you tell me to go, listen, we're never going to do that again? And
I think I probably...
Perhaps even in general, across the travel space.
My sort of response to that would be, I think it all starts with, if you don't trust the other partner, to be able to go and have the conversation to say, listen, the client does not want that food, they want this food. I mean, for example, I'll give you an example, full English breakfast in Oslo. Norwegians don't eat a full English breakfast because they're too busy running for the plane. So coming back and being able to say to Nick and the team, listen, we've got to find a way of delivering breakfast. There's got to be something else on the menu other than that. I think it comes back to having a really clear and open, honest relationship, because every unit will have its different challenges. And if you don't have that, you never get out of the starting gate. And also being able to put our hands up and say, do you know what, we need a better trained quality of manager for that type of unit than maybe what we're used to having. But I think the compromises are all done together, and I think that then works. I think the other thing is also making sure that getting into the detail is really critical. I mean, I can look back at the layouts for the various sites, and I'm thinking, if we'd all sat around the table earlier and really eyeballed the flows, because when you're in a restaurant, high street restaurant, it's generally pretty predictable. When you're in an airport and you've got different people looking for different things and you have them in such high volume, if you don't get the flow right, you are screwed, unfortunately. But I think it comes back to the point of trusting each other to have an open conversation, to accept the compromises.
Yeah. What about, are you guys looking into your travel spaces?
I think it's a consideration. We've got some great brands. It's consideration. It's a consideration we've spoken about a little while back. I think Condé Nast wanted to sort of drag back and go, hang on, we're not ready for that type of space. But I think we've got our brands in order now, which is a good thing. That's taken a bit of time. And once we've got our brands in order, then we're strong enough to go and have those types of relationships. But and I would suggest probably you guys as Jamie Oliver are probably, 3, 4, 5 years further on in your journey of expansion, perhaps from where we are. But it's an interesting sector. It's one that I know a little bit about because I travel so much anyway, probably like the lovely people out here. But it leads me to thank you two guys. And just before we wrap up, I'm going to look up and take a while. Oh, geez. We've clearly covered absolutely nothing. You two need to be a damn sight more interesting. Okay, so I've got a couple of, I've got arms up. Gents, have you got microphones, please? We'll whisk through these. I realise, just to let you know, every question is a step further away from a drink, okay?
Hi there.
All right, I'm joking. It needs to be interesting, it's fine.
Hello. You mentioned the three-way relationship with the airports and the challenges that you face. Do you think that the airports are as bought into the F&B challenges as they should be, or is that an ongoing education piece for them? And two specific examples of that: the constant trying to outdo each other by way of airport offers, especially in this region, and also the overcompensation of F&B offers per pax, so that it becomes more and more competitive.
So just one point, that's 3 questions, 3 drinks. We'll see you afterwards. Weren't you invited up on here anyway to come and speak?
I think you'll find that was my boss.
Is it really funny?
Yeah.
Okay, we should have had you up here too. But yeah, good questions. I mean, generally, guys, perhaps you're best suited to...
Yeah, after I've had a drink, I'll try.
About to say.
So I think what's interesting is that airports are now realising that F&B drives retail spend. And that if you get the F&B right, you increase the dwell time and you increase the retail spend. So that's a good thing, and there's quite a lot of consumer data to support that. In terms of the sort of arms race for having the best F&B lineup, definitely, no question about it. And sometimes you have to put in offers into tenders that you know probably won't make any money, but are going to give you the headline figurehead offer that will allow you to package up the rest of the brands that will make the money. And the question is, where's that going to end? And I think eventually people will start to realize there are only certain types of offers that work. And consumers aren't stupid. They're not just going to go for something because it's got a very fancy name over the door and very high prices. What I find interesting is if you talk to a lot of the airports now, they're seeing far more interest in food, authentic food, from, I hate using this term millennials because everybody uses it and it's a bit of a catch-all, but if you look at what's happening in duty-free, you're seeing, and I've talked to a lot of airports about this, particularly in Europe, declining or flatlining revenues in duty-free for a number of reasons. It's obviously Chinese and Russians partly, but also attitudinal from the millennial group who don't necessarily buy into the concept of duty-free, but what they are interested in is food. And they will seek out good food offers and they will see through poor food offers. And I think that is going to temper this kind of ambition of some of the airports to have the blingingest, most expensive concepts they can come up with. But the other issue is every airport does want to have something different. So Jamie's is a very important part of our portfolio because it cuts across this needing of an international offer. But in every tender, we have a layer of local offers. So a lot of our work is working with local brands. We will go and scope the market, local city. We will pick out key brands that we think are very authentic to that area, as we have done in Nice. And we will bring those brands to the airport. So a lot of times we are educating small, single operators to come into an airport environment. And that's where we have, I think, a distinct advantage when it comes to tendering. So I've tried to answer all three, but I've probably lost the plot.
So I've got...
There's about 4 or 5 questions
Yeah.
that might be worth grabbing you this evening instead.
That's just what I was going to say, especially since they all seem very lovely and ready to ask those questions. We could go on probably, no doubt, for a little time. I'm sure these guys wouldn't mind hanging back a long time for you to have that chat. I'll be in the bar.
Thanks.
Firstly, or lastly, should I say, Nick, Mark, thank you very much indeed for your time. And from all of us and no doubt panels, what a great first day, James. I think you've done a great job, mate. Well done.
Yeah,
Really
well
good
done.
stuff.
Thank you.
Really good stuff. Thank you very much.